You know, I had a 6-page speech, and I had it all printed out, and then something magnificent happened today. I got a chance to hang out with your students, and students from various colleges and universities around the country. And I can't really encapsulate everything that happened, but it was a moment when I met these young people who were acting with care, and they were pilgrims of hope. And I just said, you know, maybe I'm just going to put that speech on ice for a little while and talk from the heart, because it was truly extraordinary what I got to see and experience, and to be here, in fact, is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. And I've been working with Leah and working with people here at the university and all around the country, trying to bring together a community of hope. And I decided that I would read a little bit from a novel called Let the Great World Spin, and then spin out of that and tell you a little bit about storytelling, my ideas about storytelling, and indeed the organization Narrative 4. And it seems fundamental to the moment that we had here this afternoon when the young people just sort of opened up with these extraordinary ideas about what stories mean, what storytelling means, what dignity is, how do we combat the ideas of nonchalance, and how do we act with serious amounts of care. This story takes place in 1974 in New York, in August 1974, when Philippe Petit did his tightrope walk across the World Trade Center towers. I remember an essay that I had read by Paul Auster, the late Paul Auster, who had written about Philippe Petit, the tightrope walker, who had walked between the World Trade Center towers in 1974. In other words, that this act of creation, which was his beautiful brazen act of a tightrope walk, going back and forth 9 times on a 3/4-inch wire, 3/4 of a mile in the sky. Actually, at one stage, hopping on the wire and laying down on the wire. This act of art stood in almost, or act of creation, stood in almost perfect opposition to the act of destruction that we were witnessing at that particular time. And I thought, oh my, maybe someday I will be able to negotiate my 9/11 experience by actually writing about something that happened 27 years earlier. I want to read you just 2 short paragraphs, and it takes place, there's an Irish monk who lives in the South Bronx. He's a petit frère de Dieu, or the piccolo frati of the small brothers of God. And basically he's taken his vows, poverty, chastity, obedience, and he's living in the South Bronx. And his brother tells part of his story. And so this is what he says about him. Corrigan told me once that Christ was quite easy to understand. He went where he was supposed to go. He stayed where he was needed. He took little or nothing along. A pair of sandals, a bit of a shirt, a few odds and ends to stave off the loneliness. He never rejected the world. If he had rejected it, he would have been rejecting mystery. And if he rejected mystery, he would have been rejecting faith. What Corrigan wanted was a fully believable God, one you could find in the grime of the everyday. The comfort he got from the hard, cold truth, the filth, the war, the poverty, was that life could be capable of small beauties. He wasn't interested in the glorious tales of the afterlife or the notions of a honey-soaked heaven. To him, that was a dressing room for hell. Rather, he consoled himself with the fact that in the real world, when he looked closely into the darkness, he might find the presence of a light, damaged and bruised, but a little light all the same. He wanted, quite simply, for the world to be a better place. And he was in the habit of hoping for it. Out of that came some sort of triumph that went beyond theological proof, a cause for optimism against all the evidence. Someday, he said, the meek might actually want it. And that's, I suppose, what we're talking about when we talk about hope, when we talk about storytelling, and we talk about healing in a broken world. Are we capable of myth in the face of all other evidence? Is it possible that in this broken world, that I do think is broken right now, I think it's more broken than I have ever seen it, certainly. And what happens when you have this thing in your hands that's either shattered or shattering? What can you do with it? How can you repair it? For a long time, I have thought that that healing, that medicine, comes in the ability to speak to one another, to understand one another, sometimes across the divides, sometimes in extraordinary situations where we must get to know one another. It comes in the act of storytelling. Not in the didactic notion of, I need to tell you what you should think. I'm talking about personal storytelling, where the mystery comes together and the poetry comes together and creates a sort of potential medicine that we can have for one another. And before you all go woo-woo, or before I go woo-woo and say this is all sort of like, pie in the sky, let me tell you one thing that I truly believe. Stories can be dangerous. Stories can take away your house. Stories can take away your identity. Stories can take away your nation. But stories can also act as miracles too. Stories are in the right hands. They can work miracles with one another. I know an Israeli man and a Palestinian man who I've written about in another novel called A Paragon. And they have said all the way along, we don't need to love each other. We don't even need to like one another, although we hope that we could. But we absolutely must understand one another. And we understand one another through stories and storytelling. People say the world is held together with atoms and molecules, and indeed it is, of course it is. But it is also held together with stories. This is how we meet each other. This is how we touch one another. Narrative 4 is a global organization. We're now in 42 countries where we bring young people together, primarily young people together, to step into one another's shoes and to tell stories, to tell one another's stories in the first person. What happens is an extraordinary act of radical empathy, essentially saying that we need to live in a world that is outside of ourselves. One of the things that I feel that is really dangerous right now, and as part of this epidemic of loneliness and isolation, is that we are diseased with certainty. We are all so certain. We're all so certain of ourselves. And come into the room if you look like me, come into the room if you vote like me, and come into the room if you sound like me. But otherwise, stay out. And this is problematic. And I love when they call me sentimental and naive, because I actually think that the cynic is the naive one. The cynic is the sentimental one. I will go toe-to-toe with any cynic and go down as deep a rabbit hole as I possibly can, and I will probably agree with them all the way until they hit rock bottom. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, the world is dark. Yes, all of this. And then, and when they're finally exhausted, I will say, they will say to me, well, so if you agree with me, why are you not calling yourself a cynic? I'll say, because everything you say might be true, but the essential words are, so what? So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to vault away from that? It seems to me that this is what a university does, this is what a teacher does, and this is what we're learning with one another when we desire to meet one another through the stories that go across borders, that go across boundaries, that go across continents in extraordinary ways, and then also comes home, goes across streets, goes across dorm rooms. We need to know one another. We need to listen to one another. The value of stories come in telling them, yes, but in listening to the stories of others and to listening to your own story being told back to you. It really is quite extraordinary. Acting with care, using storytelling to create hope, to encourage healing in this broken world, to gather up some of the pieces that are scattered all the way around our feet and to bring them back together again and to create something that we can hold in the palms of our hands. Thank you.